Coming up on Global Business, Future Focus, the World Economic Forum Summer Davos kicks off in Dalian, bringing together more than 2,000 global leaders focused on innovation and the next growth engine. AI supply chain. The China International Supply Chain Expo is underway in Beijing, featuring its first dedicated AI zone with major tech players including Nvidia, Intel and Alibaba. And Brexit legacy. A decade after the UK voted to leave the EU, we examine how the Brexit decision has shaped Britain's economy. Welcome to CGTN's Global Business. I'm Lincoln Humphreys. We'll start with the World Economic Forum's 17th annual meeting of the New Champions, also known as the Summer Davos, which opened Tuesday in the Chinese port city of Dalian. This year's gathering saw international participation surge nearly 30%. Under the theme, Innovating at Scale, the three-day event will explore cutting-edge fields, including artificial intelligence, new energy, biomedicine and quantum technology, as global leaders search for the next growth engine. Our reporter Yu Bo-kun has more.
Summer Davos is back in Dalian, bringing over 2,000 global leaders across industry for the World Economic Forum's annual meeting of the New Champions. Compared with the winter meeting in the Switzerland, this edition leans more towards innovation and future growth with a focus on China and broader Asian region. So what's really on the table? First, China's trajectories. For many attendees, China remains central front. And for many companies, they're laser focused on China's economic growth and its opening up.
Every time I visit, I'm just shocked at how much growth there is in China. Like there is so much technological innovation, there is so much manufacturing innovation. And the biggest thing that I feel China has done really well is create ecosystems of manufacturing.
And there's a lot of young people in China. I think the future is young people being entrepreneurs. I think there's a lot of space for tourism, for food, for this becoming a place where people will come for food around the world.
Second, shifting trade patterns. As global trade map redraws itself, how are companies pivoting? That's one of the key themes this year. The WTO forecasts global goods trade growth to slow to 1.9% in 2026. I asked business leaders how they're coping with the rising geopolitical friction.
I think the reality is that companies are adjusting to local markets, and although they may be global players, they understand that they need markets that are sensitive to, attuned to, aligned with local market conditions and local systems.
And third, artificial intelligence. At a time of uncertainty, many see AI as a future growth. From energy transition to generating entirely new jobs, AI is the connective tissue across nearly every session on the agenda.
Our company is also adopting this technology now, which has delivered substantial benefits, such as cost reduction and intelligent management and control. We can hardly operate without AI at this point.
What I understand, the Chinese market is so competitive, so AI is one of the ways you're trying to increase your production by reducing your cost increasingly as competition is such a big thing.
These are the critical conversations unfolding in Dalian. Over the coming days, global leaders will be searching for clarity and opportunity in an increasingly unpredictable world. Yu Bo-kun, CGTN, Dalian.
On the sidelines of the forum, Kiva Allgood, Managing Director of the World Economic Forum, told my colleague Guan Xin that scaling up innovation requires more than just cutting-edge technology. It demands a people-first approach. In an exclusive interview, Allgood highlighted how human-machine collaboration is reshaping global manufacturing. She also praised China's long-term investments in intelligent infrastructure, calling them a key factor behind the country's strong presence in the WEF's prestigious Global Lighthouse Network.
You are an expert on advanced manufacturing, supply chains, innovation. Tell us about your understanding about this year's theme, Innovating at Scale, and what is the most important enabler to make large-scale innovation a reality?
Oh, well, thank you for having me. I think I'm more of a lifelong learner. So after 30 some odd years really in the space of advanced manufacturing and supply chain, one thing I've learned to, is not to underestimate the community. And that I think is what's at the core is the talent, the people. They're always really trying to figure out, how do I really transform the way that I work on a daily basis? And I think the spirit of the discussions that we're having this week really are around innovating at scale means bringing people along for that journey. So how do you upskill and reskill? How do you get them excited about the new technologies? We were just talking about drone delivery and, cars that take you places without drivers. I think now that people can see innovation in action in those new ways, they're inspired to think through, how can my job change? How can I be a robot operator versus maybe just a technician? So I think those two things go hand in hand.
And you just announced a human-machine collaborative framework. Tell us why it is important and what is the most critical shift that companies need to consider in their workforce development.
Well, I think with human-machine collaboration, it is all about that title and that concept, that the humans and the machines, they need to collaborate. They need to work together. And when we see that in action, we just announced a new cohort of Global Lighthouse Network winners. At the heart of that, 100% of those are using AI. But they're also putting in frameworks that allow the talent and the knowledge and the insights on the factory floor or in the distribution center to be brought into those agents, right? They're not being done in a vacuum. They're being done with decades of insight and information. That's probably, I think, the biggest transformation. This isn't a technology evolution. It is a technology plus human evolution, and really understanding, how do you combine skills? You now have someone who may have done one job one day. Now they've gained all these new skills, and they can do that job plus 2, 3, 4 others that really allow them, like I said, to be a robot operator, right? So manage a fleet of robots or a fleet of drones. It really transforms the way they work.
Right. And talking about the Global Lighthouse Network, several Chinese companies have just made into the list. How would you rate their performance, and how do you see the unique characteristics about China's manufacturing ecosystem?
Yeah, I think one of the best things that the ecosystem has is a 5-year plan that has been repeated in an investment over 20-25 years. There's been a core investment in something we call intelligent infrastructure. So that's the combination of traditional infrastructure plus digital infrastructure plus the human capability piece of it. It's the educating, it's the training, it's inspiring young people to want to work and to build things with their hands. So for us, the Global Lighthouse Network, it is it's a prestigious place to be. There's only 238 of them in the globe. Out of 10 million. And a lot of those are in China. And they're here because of that investment that has been made into that intelligent infrastructure.
The 4th China International Supply Chain Expo entered its second day on Tuesday, with 40 businesses and exchange events scheduled throughout the day. 5 companies held product launches during the morning session, covering sectors including agriculture, finance and supply chain services, while another 6 took the stage in the afternoon. 5 thematic exchange events were also held in parallel. Hainan, one of the host provinces of honour, held an investment promotion session this morning, drawing strong interest from foreign participants. Meanwhile, the Ningxia Hui Autonomous Region and the province of Qinghai also hosted industrial promotion and negotiation events seeking to connect their competitive industries and resources with global innovation networks. Organisers say the expo will feature 70 business events throughout the week, including 9 thematic events and 3 activities hosted by countries and provinces of honour. Our reporter Zhu Ju takes us through some of the high-tech highlights on display at the expo.
This year's China International Supply Chain Expo for the first time set up an AI zone, bringing together major Chinese and international tech giants such as NVIDIA, Intel, and Alibaba. Well, right behind me is the exhibition zone for NVIDIA. Its founder, Jensen Huang, also delivered his opening remarks online yesterday, saying that over 1.6 million Chinese developers have built industrial AI applications on NVIDIA platform. From data collection to computing power to real-world applications, the full AI value chain is all on display here. And right next door is Hall W3, is the advanced manufacturing chain, where more than 80 companies from China and abroad are gathered here. And the aviation industry chain is one of the highlights. 15 of the world's top aviation manufacturers are taking part, covering the entire aircraft lifecycle, from upstream materials to precision manufacturing, all the way to post-delivery operations and services. Together, they present a fully connected end-to-end industrial chain for large aircraft.
NVIDIA, Intel, Qualcomm and Alibaba headline a powerhouse roster of Chinese and international AI giants at the Supply Chain Expo's new AI Zone. 200 enterprises across the sector are on the hunt for new partnerships, covering everything from large model applications and computing infrastructure to embodied intelligence.
The supply chain for embodied intelligence and robotics is primarily concentrated in China. We hope to work together to improve this industrial and supply chain ecosystem and fully realize its supply chain value.
Our products can address the issue of insufficient training data for embodied intelligence while genuinely entering essential production scenarios, playing a role in intelligent manufacturing and logistics picking. Fields such as AI plus translation, AI plus manufacturing, and AI plus smart vehicles are now advancing AI deeper into industrial applications.
How can AI be applied to our real economy, whether in manufacturing, R&D, retail, or services? There are numerous application scenarios. We particularly hope to collaborate closely with our Chinese partners.
After the emergence of large models, how to leverage their capabilities across thousands of industries and various life scenarios, these new directions, we are actively discussing and collaborating with numerous industry partners.
China's foreign ministry said at a Tuesday press conference that events such as the Global Supply Chain Expo serve as a practical channel for the country to advance its high-level opening up and share opportunities with the world.
共同维护全球产业链供应链稳定
Upholding the global supply chain network safety and stability is vital for the healthy development of the world economy. The Global Supply Chain Expo can bridge together Chinese and international companies, helping them find business partners and solutions. Over 36% of participants at this year's Supply Chain Expo are foreign invested entities, which is a vote of confidence in the Chinese economy. This is a practical way for China to facilitate high-level opening up. We welcome companies of all countries to tap further into the Chinese market.
The fourth China International Supply Chain Expo is bringing together companies and policymakers from around the world to explore deeper cooperation across global supply chains. For developing countries such as Nicaragua, the Expo offers a platform to connect with global partners, expand industrial cooperation and integrate into international supply networks. Our reporter He Jingyi spoke with Erwin Ramirez, Nicaragua's Minister of Development, Industry and Commerce, about the opportunities he sees through China-Nicaragua cooperation and the future of resilient global supply chains.
As this year's CRSCE highlights the integration and innovation of global supply chains, so how do you evaluate the unique opportunities this platform provides for Nicaragua and other Latin American countries to connect with China's comprehensive industrial chain system?
Global supply chains are a fundamental and strategic element for the development of national economies, and primarily for the competitiveness of companies. This forum serves as an ideal platform for countries like Nicaragua, and indeed for all nations, because it provides us with the opportunity to connect with a vast number of participants within these global supply chains. The leadership of the People's Republic of China is fundamental for us, as it grants us first-hand access to all these key actors across the global supply chain.
In which specific areas does Nicaragua plan to deepen its cooperation with China through this platform?
Nicaragua is a country with a strong agricultural foundation. The majority of our export products come from agriculture. Therefore, it is essential for us to connect with global supply chains, especially in terms of agricultural production and processing. In this regard, access to agricultural inputs and supplies is crucial, as they allow us to strengthen production, increase productivity, expand exports, and contribute to Nicaragua's economic and social development. Our investment priorities also include the energy sector. Nicaragua has abundant natural resources that can support renewable energy development, including wind power, photovoltaic energy, and biomass. Therefore, connecting our investment strategies with global supply chains is of great importance.
The global industrial and supply chain currently face significant challenges such as regionalization and fragmentation. So what role do you think developing countries can play in reshaping a stable and inclusive landscape through events like this?
Indeed, the world's supply chains are currently facing major challenges. Stability and resilience require precisely the vision of a multipolar world. This platform represents exactly the model proposed by China through this forum. As Nicaragua, we fully support this model and these initiatives. As a developing country, our strategic partnership with China provides us with the confidence that global supply chains are fundamental to our future. Platforms like this forum allow us to establish connections, strengthen cooperation, and stabilize supply chains so that we can continue advancing along the path of economic and social development for Nicaragua.
Still to come on Global Business. Brexit legacy. A decade after the UK voted to leave the EU, we examine how the Brexit decision has shaped Britain's economy.
Supply chains. How China and the world are working together to make them more resilient than ever. Closing gaps across links. Connecting consumers, businesses, markets, and nations. This June in Beijing, the 4th China International Supply Chain Expo brings the world's leading experts and companies together in one place. Watch CGTN for comprehensive coverage of the latest trends in technology. June 22nd to June 26th, only on CGTN.
Innovating at scale. At the 2026 Summer Davos in Dalian, China, leaders converge to shape the future of the world economy. From trade routes redrawn and industries reinvented, to AI that must deliver more than promises, and clean energy rewriting the rules of competitiveness. We're there to bring you the voices driving global change. Join CGTN in Dalian for special coverage of Summer Davos 2026.
UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer's resignation comes just days before the 10-year anniversary of the country's vote to leave the European Union. A new survey by the European Council on Foreign Relations shows nearly 2/3 of British voters see negative consequences from Brexit. Among the top concerns, higher trade barriers, increased red tape and fewer opportunities for young people. At the same time, a majority of those surveyed want closer ties with the EU and prefer Europe over the US as a security partner. On June 23, 2016, the UK held its Brexit referendum with nearly 52% voting to leave the EU. Economics professor Jonathan Portis from King's College London says the decision has weakened the UK economy and fueled political instability.
The UK economy is clearly weaker and smaller than it would have been in the absence of Brexit. There's a lot of debate about how big that impact it is, but it is certainly several percent of GDP. So we're, broadly speaking, several percent poorer as a result of Brexit. Politically, of course, it's much harder to say. I would say two things. One is that we've had a period of political instability since Brexit, and that was not entirely down to Brexit. But I think Brexit has clearly aggravated political instability in the UK. Brexit obviously has been negative for the UK, but the EU was weakened by the loss of the UK, and that's particularly important in the current geopolitical environment. And the EU would be much stronger if it were to be reassociated with the UK in some form, particularly given the economic, geopolitical and security challenges we face, thanks again to Trump's destabilizing influence.
Pressing on now to some other business headlines we're tracking for you around the globe this hour. Staying in the Eurozone, the Eurozone's business downturn moderated in June, with the Purchasing Managers' Index climbing to 49.5 from May's 48.5 as price pressures linked to the Middle East war eased, according to S&P Global data released Tuesday. In currency markets, Japan's yen tumbled to 161.58 against the dollar on Tuesday, hovering near a four-decade low. Japanese government bond yields have climbed to near their highest levels in decades as markets expect the government to unveil fresh stimulus and tax relief policies. In the Republic of Korea, the benchmark Kospi plunged nearly 10%, or 910.71 points, hit by US tech losses. The Korea exchange briefly triggered a circuit breaker during the session, halting trading for the fourth time this year. Driven by rising fuel costs and growing concerns over pollution, India is rapidly transitioning to electric vehicles. But as more consumers embrace the shift, the country's infrastructure and supply chains are becoming strained. Long delivery times and charging network access issues are among the challenges emerging alongside this market shift. CGTN's Mohit ul-Islam reports from New Delhi.
For more than a year, New Delhi resident Kunal Valeja has been considering the purchase of a new car. Now he has decided to make the move to an electric vehicle. He says escalating fuel prices and concerns over potential oil supply disruptions linked to tensions in the Middle East ultimately influenced his decision.
I decided to move to EV because of low running cost and some government subsidies as well and low maintenance. My suggestion for public is to go for EV. As we know, we all have to go at once, day by day, because of ongoing pollution as well in Delhi, we all know. So EV is a must, and also we can help the country as well to reduce the pollution.
But as more consumers shift towards electric vehicles, the pace of adoption is beginning to outstrip the system's ability to support it. Waiting times for EV deliveries now stretch from 1 to 3 months for major automakers, including Maruti Suzuki, Mahindra, MG, and Tata, as manufacturers contend with semiconductor constraints and limited domestic battery manufacturing capacity. India also remains heavily dependent on imported battery components, creating further pressure on production timelines, while charging infrastructure continues to develop unevenly across the country. Reports of charging shortages and non-operational stations have emerged from regions including Jammu and Kashmir and Ladakh. Even so, demand continues to accelerate. EV sales climbed from an approximately 239,000 units in March to 271,000 in May, with three-wheelers continuing to drive much of that growth.
So definitely we are seeing a huge spike in demand right now because of the Middle East crisis, one. Second, because of the fuel prices which have shot up. And third, because EVs are also becoming, more consistent in terms of the range which they give, in terms of the price at which they're coming in terms of the entire charging infrastructure which is being built in the country.
The rapid growth in EV adoption is beginning to expose pressure points across India's infrastructure network. The country's power grid will require major upgrades to support rising fast charging demand, ensuring local electricity systems can absorb heavier loads without triggering voltage fluctuations or placing additional strain on the transformers. Although India has nearly 29,000 public charging stations in operation, coverage remains uneven, with major gaps still evident along highway networks. Reaching the government's goal of more than 1 million chargers by 2030 will require not only a sharp expansion of charging capacity, but also the development of widespread fast charging corridors and battery swapping ecosystems.
We need smarter grid infrastructure, substations, transformers, because the sudden surge in fast charging demand can lead to transformer and grid failures, and that is why what will be beneficial for India going forward will be creating batteries as buffers between the charging and the grid, as well as shifting the nighttime charging demand to the daytime so that we can shift this EV charging demand to the solar or renewable energy.
Behind the push for cleaner mobility lies a growing dependency on imported technology.
India remains heavily reliant on China for lithium cell supplies, and as competition for critical battery minerals grows worldwide, New Delhi is stepping up efforts to secure long-term supply chains through overseas mining agreements and expanded domestic exploration. This is Mohitul Islam for CGTN from New Delhi, India.
The sale of Chinese-made vehicles is surging in Australia. They now account for roughly 1/3 of new vehicles sold. And they're not only giving consumers more affordable choices, but also helping Australia transition to electric and hybrid vehicles. Greg Navarro in Melbourne has the story.
Spend some time with BYD Australia Chief Operating Officer Stephen Collins, and two things become abundantly clear. He knows his vehicles.
It's a PHEV, so it's got around 100 kilometres of full EV range.
And business for the Chinese automaker is, well...
Yeah, business is pretty good.
So good, in fact, that the company is selling vehicles by the shipload. This purpose-built car carrier offloaded just under 5,000 new vehicles in Melbourne earlier this month.
Export markets, foreign sales are really important to BYD right now, and Australia is very much a focused market.
It's part of a growing wave of Chinese-made vehicles that's transforming the country's automotive market. Great Wall Motors, Chery and MG have joined BYD in Australia's top 10 best-selling brands this year.
I'm not surprised. They developed joint ventures with international companies. They made vehicle electrification part of their industrial development strategy.
Consumers here now have a greater choice of affordable electric and hybrid vehicles, which, coupled with rising fuel prices, is driving the country's EV transition. In May, 1 out of every 2 vehicles sold in Australia was either electric or hybrid.
All of this is quite remarkable in a country that just a couple of years ago was considered by automakers to be a dumping ground for petrol-based vehicles because of a lack of any real emission standards.
That changed last year when the government's new vehicle efficiency standards came into effect.
They have started to encourage the car dealers to import more variety of better fuel consumption, lower emission vehicles.
Australia is a highly attractive market for Chinese automakers with no trade barriers and no local auto manufacturing to protect. The two countries are also deeply connected in the global electric vehicle supply chain. Australia is home to vast amounts of lithium reserves that help power China's EV battery industry.
So you can see from the upstream, the two countries actually, they're sort of embedded with one another. I mean, Australia is benefiting.
As Chinese automakers continue to help drive Australia's transition to lower emission vehicles, their influence on the country's automotive landscape appears set to grow. China recently overtook Japan as Australia's largest source of new vehicles, ending a nearly 30-year run at the top. Greg Navarro, CGTN, Melbourne.
Good to see things driving forward at home. That is it for this edition of Global Business. I'm Lincoln Humphreys in Beijing. You've been excellent company. We'll see you next time. Goodbye for now.